Hi you guys, it's Joanne here from Apple Tree Studio, and I was thinking the other day that we don't have to put pressure on ourselves to paint masterpieces. I'm guilty of that as well. You know, I set out, I'll get all my paints out and I think, right, I'm going to paint the best picture I ever painted. Or it's a commission for someone and it has to be absolutely perfect. And sometimes I think we all do that, don't we? We put too much pressure on ourselves to create masterpieces, and this is why I advise you to have play days. And I certainly do have play days where I just come into the studio, grab even just the back of old paintings. I don't always use my best paper, and I just play. I play with a bit of colour, just simple little things, just to give me joy and to make me remember why I love watercolour so much. So what I thought was we'll just do a very, very simple little flower study in a glass jar. And it really is simple, and you can adapt it as well. You can change the colours of that, you can add things, you can take things away. But at the end of the day, it's simple and not complicated. And I think we all need a bit of that in our lives, don't we? Just to make us smile. So if you're enjoying these free tutorials, then please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. It is free. And I have to say, I don't post every week. I am so busy. I give all my energy to my Patreon channel, producing tutorials and watercolour tutorials for them. And occasionally I do post here on YouTube. So it's not a regular thing. But if you do subscribe, then at least you're not going to miss any content when I do post. You can always take your ass a little bit further as well by checking out my Patreon channel. And you can find all this information on my website at artbyboon.co.uk. So, are you ready? Let's just have a bit of fun. Go grab your brushes and let's paint some flowers together. So I've cut my paper to size. I've got a big jug of clean water. I've always got my spray bottle. You can just see that on the side there. In fact, I'll just move this across a little bit because I want you to see the palette as well. It is a messy palette today. That's because I've been a busy girl, but I will go through the colours with you. I've got a size 10 round brush, and I want us to be nice and loose and free with this. So I have got a bit of a drawing down. I'll hold that up. I think you'll probably just be able to see it. It's a very, very scribbly loose drawing, but it's just a guideline really, because I found that if I put too much pencil in, then I'm going to create too much detail. So we definitely don't want that. So, are you feeling brave? Come on then. Let's take a bit of cadmium yellow and let's just drop it into the corners of these flowers. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. And while that's still wet, let's take some cadmium red. It's my favourite red, cadmium red. And I'm going to just drop that in like that. Allow that to blend with the yellow. I'm not being too careful. I'm just using the side of my brush just to push in those shapes. A nice round one there, look. Another nice round one, and then one coming down like that. Now, I'm going to clean my brush and just soften a few of those marks. So just pulling a few marks out. Sometimes that happens, these colours blend together, and you know what? That's not a bad thing. So we've made a star, haven't we? Let's clean our brush and let's make a green. So I'll take that cadmium yellow again and mix it with some Prussian blue. That's going to give me a lovely green. Make it a bit lighter. And I'm going to put the stems in, and what's going to happen is the red is going to run into that, isn't it? But we're being free today, we're being loose. We're being brave. And things are happening. Okay, so let's take one from here. We won't really see one there, will we? So, but I'll start to bring some shapes down now, and then bring them down into this shape here, which is of course the glass jar. Down, a few squiggly ones, maybe one hitting the side there, look. How many flowers have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's have another little baby one just there, look. And maybe just a hint of one here. Before that dries, I'm going to go back into my cadmium red again, and I'm going to just drop just some of that red into those stems. Now I'd like us to suggest a bit of water in there, so I'm just bringing those shapes back up to that line. And before this completely dries, what I'd like to do is give it a spritz. So I'm going to give it a little spritz now. Oh, it's my favourite thing to do. Another little spritz. And then obviously I need to wait for that to dry before I can do anything else. But for those of you who remember Blue Peter, I think you need to be in the UK for that, don't you? Here's one I prepared earlier. So there we go. And I'll move that to one side. And you can see here now that I gave it a spritz. I let it dry. Here's the stems. And I've not touched the glass shape yet at all. So let's start to put a little bit more meaning into these flowers. And let's imagine we've got a lovely light coming from this top left-hand corner. So if I take the red again and I say, okay, let's make the base of that flower darker. And let's make the inside bit a little darker. So I'll clean my brush and I'll push that value up and I'll push that value out. And look what's happening. We're starting to create a shape that looks like a flower. Should we do another one? Let's do one that's kind of drooping down here. So the light's going to hit this top. So I'm going to come in with a nice dark red. Maybe a bit here as well. Cleaning my brush. Softening that away. Pulling it out. And I've got another flower shape. And I've deliberately made this edge darker here because obviously I want that flower to be in front. But let's just do a couple more. So let's come in and put a darker centre. And this one, maybe a bit of a dark at the base. Let's clean the brush. Just soften them away. And we've got another flower. Again, let's find this one here. Let's make it darker at the base. I've lost the drawing actually on that one. But you know what? It really doesn't matter. Just pull that up with your brush. And it's just a suggestion of a flower shape. Another dark red here. Let's have a nice centre red. Maybe some little shapes that come off from the centre. Cleaning my brush. Just softening that down, allowing those colours to bleed. We've got another one here, so I'll make the centre a bit darker. I'll just pull out that lovely red from the centre. And I'm just using water to do this. There's another one here, isn't there? Let's just make that just a tad darker in the centre. Let's put a few little shapes like that as well. And allow that wash to pull out and flow down the page. So you can see that I'm not using lots and lots of detail here. I'm just using brush strokes and value. And they're not perfect. I've lost this one a little bit. That one's disappeared a little bit. But I don't want to tell the whole story, so we're just making an impression here. Let's take this a little bit further. While it's still wet, let's be brave and let's take some ultramarine blue. Can you see that? Sorry, I'm just taking that from my palette. And let's just start to do a tiny bit of negative painting. So how about in between here? Where that has a lovely stem, doesn't it? So we'll not paint the stem. Oh, there's another shape. So we'll not paint that stem. I think we can afford to put a little bit in that crevice as well. And of course, everyone's picture is going to be different, isn't it? So here I've got a bit of a stem. Oh, it's bleeding into that wet red as well. I'll just pull that out with a nice wet brush. How about we add some shadow work into the vase or the jar, just by using that ultramarine blue. And I'll bring that right down. I'll add lots of water and just soften that down. Maybe a little bit more under here, under the shadow of that flower. Would be quite nice. And I'll just leave that little highlight there just to suggest the water in the glass. I mean, at this point, you could let it dry, couldn't you? Because obviously you want to put some little tiny details in. But I want this warm-up just to be a bit of fun, really. So you're not putting pressure on yourself at all. We're just playing around, aren't we? Let's see what happens if we put a blue against here. And then maybe come in a little bit, look, on that flower to give it a bit more shape. Let's clean our brush. And let's soften that away with that heel of that brush, just pulling it out. And look at that lovely light there we've created just by putting a darker value next to that light. Let's take that a bit further. Let's take some red, the cadmium red and the ultramarine blue. And let's make a little bit of a darker value. So let's draw with our brush. Let's put in a nice shape here that could be the base. We could also use that darker mixture just to pop in a few extra darks while it's still wet. Maybe a bit of one there, look. Maybe one right into that wet area. I'm going to give mine a little spritz. And I'll keep looking for areas. So here I think I'd like to just come in with a bit more blue. And you can see that my picture is so wet that things are happening, things are fusing together. I call them happy accidents, really. I'm quite happy for those washes just to do their own thing. Oh, it's so tempting, isn't it? I want to carry on and carry on and carry on, but I'm not, because I'm going to put my brush down, because it's a lovely little warm-up for you, and I don't want us to get too carried away with detail. But have a play around. You know, I'm not particularly painting. They look like poppies. They could be any flower, really. I'm just going for a bit of colour, a bit of value, putting darks where I need lights, and just basically having fun. One last spritz from me. There we go. Go grab your brushes and do a little floral warm-up. Thanks for watching. Take care.